So thank you both. Thank you, Elliot. Thank you, GERI, for your leadership here, and for everyone with MKP and Women Within who have helped this to happen.
It's a great honor and privilege to be here with you all today. And thank you, Elliot and GERI and the MKP leadership team. We are thrilled to be here and introduce you to our work today. So I'm going to begin by just giving a very brief outline of the history of this work. I'm an environmental scientist by training, and I worked in climate change mitigation for 25 years. And in the course of that work, in the late 80s and early 90s, there was quite a bit of sexual harassment going down within the environmental movement that was hidden, toxic, very similar to what was recently revealed through the Me Too movement. And so a group of us in the early 90s began to address it, late 80s, early 90s. We started these programs, never intending for it to go more widely than just the environmental movement itself. We were just trying to attend to our own house cleaning, if you will, because we had a contradiction. Here we are trying to heal a relationship with the natural environment, but we had a toxic relationship with our human ecology within our networks. So we began these programs, and that was how it got started. We called them gender and ecology. Are there parallels between exploitation of the earth and exploitation of the feminine? And as you imagine, there are certain parallels. And what we learned, foundational principle, is that untold stories keep oppression invisible and thereby enable it to continue. And when we bring these stories out, we start to begin a whole alchemy of transformation. And so that's really the essence of this work. We began with fits and starts, lots of experimental work. We were doing it just for a network of colleagues, so we could just do it in-house, if you will. But by the mid-90s, others started getting interested. We started expanding. We were very inspired by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. So we said, we need something like this for gender. We need a gender Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So we started calling it Gender Reconciliation. And it then continued to grow from there. In 2001, we got invited to India for the first time. In 2003, to South Africa for the first time. In 2006, we were invited by the Deputy Minister of Health in South Africa, and we did a program for members of parliament, and that led to invitations all over the country. So we worked in South Africa and India a lot in those years. And now what we're doing is we are a training organization. We're expanding the operation. We've delivered this program to thousands of people in countries, as Elliot said. We're now training the next generation of leaders. We're also expanding to include the LGBTQI+ communities. We've been working in those arenas for a while. Now we're taking that online. We're also expanding with people of color programs so that they can do their own gender work without whites in the room, and specific target communities, religious leaders, and other groups. And we are also taking it to scale at a new level. And we're very enthused to be here with all of you today and to share this program with you today.
And I'm not sure if you said this, but by the way, my name's Cynthia. This is Will. Elliot introduced us, but just formally. I'm not sure if you said this, but yesterday we were very excited because our first Spanish speaking course was launched for all Spanish speakers, but mainly in Mexico and parts of Latin America. So anyway, we're expanding. This work is probably best, the methodology, the way it works is best spoken by a quote from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "Injustice and corruption will never be transformed by keeping them hidden, but only by bringing them out into the light and confronting them with the power of love." And that is what our work is about. We create and convene safer forms, braver forms for both women and men and people of all gender identities to come forward with their truth of the sensitive and often taboo issues around gender and sexuality without shame or blame, with compassion. And it's not to dwell in those stories, but to really speak about the pain and suffering that's happened there so that we can actually get to the other side. so that we can actually come into a place of a new civilization on this earth that is not oppressive, that is transformed. And so I also want to recognize that, as you can see, Will and I are both white. We're from the US. We're older. And our team we work very hard to have a diverse team. Today, we welcome Desiree English, who is from South Africa. So you'll get to experience her, and she'll do an intro soon. Phil Viverito, who's here from St. Louis, Missouri, and Garrett Evans, who's also here, who will be doing a short intro in just a few minutes. And as we do these activities, which we'll invite you to step into in just a few moments, but as you do it, we invite the parts of your life, the intersectionalities that come into play as you share your story. So I'll stop there, and maybe you can complete our time.
In case you're wondering, yes, we are married, happily married. And we've been doing this work for umpteen years. I'll just conclude by saying a wonderful quote from D.H. Lawrence: "The future of humanity will be decided by relations not between nations, but relations between women and men." And of course, nowadays we expand that to include relations across the gender categories, because healing this issue is foundational to the health of the entire human civilization. So let's get going. I think
So we'll turn it over to Desiree English.
Thank you so much, Will and Cynthia, and hello to everyone on this event. My name is Desiree English, and I'm calling in from my home in Cape Town in South Africa, and it is just about 20 to 11 at night for me, but I'm so happy to be here with all of you. So I work in private practice as a trauma-informed and healing-centered process facilitator. We are focused on two areas mainly. The one is in trauma healing using a modality called TRE, trauma release exercise, working one-on-one as well as with groups, taking it into organizations. And the other part is in the work as a lead facilitator and trainer of the Gender Equity and Reconciliation International Program. So just a little bit about my story. I attended my first workshop in 2014, and I have been present and active in the work since. In that particular workshop, I'm deeply connected with part of my story as the fourth born. I have 4 brothers, and I grew up with an alcoholic and abusive father. And that's when I began to piece together the conditioning, the blueprint that my father had set for me with his violent and abusive behavior. And that also started my journey of healing and softening my heart and my transformation as a woman. So happy to be here. Thank you.
So my name is Phil Viverito. I'm with the Mankind Project St. Louis community, and I've been a warrior for 15 years. And I actually did a GERI workshop in person back in 2014, back in the days when we actually did meet in person, didn't do everything on Zoom. And my experience of that particular weekend was that I had a lot of resistance going in the workshop. And once I was there, I had a lot of resistance once I was there. Very similar to the experience I had my New Warrior training adventure. So anyway, I did finish out that workshop, and I would say that the experience for me was that it was a personal transformation. And I have a friend whom you may know who's also an MKP warrior by the name of Julian Devereaux. And Julian once said something that stuck with me, which I believe to be true, at least it's been my experience. And he said, GERI is the next step beyond men's work for a man who truly wishes to heal. Thank you. Cynthia?
So thank you, Phil. Thank you, Des. There are 5 of us on this team, so we will each have this brief intro so you know they doesn't go on forever. My name's Cynthia Brix, and I came to this work because my mother introduced me to it. She came to a program 25 years ago and came back and gifted my brother, my sister-in-law with me. She said, "For everything I have screwed up in your life, this work will heal you." She had no idea I'd be where I am today with it. And then I also came into this work through my Me Too story, which happened in a corporation, a health and wellness corporation where I was middle management. And the chairman of the board, the co-founder of the organization who lives in Seattle now, it was in Indianapolis, during a dinner, business dinner, he sexually propositioned me. He said, "Cynthia, I've enjoyed getting to know you. Now it's time to take our relationship to a deeper, more intimate sexual level." I said no. He didn't hear my no. He continued to pressure me. I decided to bring it forth with as much compassion as I could. He apologized, except the corporation hired 6 attorneys to bring me down. And it was the first time as a white woman living in the US, I had always worked for the other around race and gender and sexual orientation, all of this stuff, but never had I had to speak out for myself. And it just crumbled my life. And I walked out of that, or was pushed out of that corporation, and I didn't trust men. I didn't like men. I didn't want to be around men, but I also didn't trust women because they had betrayed me too. They had to stay in their jobs. And it took a lot of healing for me to come back into a place where I could turn that anger and hatred and mistrust into more compassion, deeper understanding, and come into real relationship with all human beings. So I'm happy to be here with you today. Will?
Thank you. I'll just add a couple words about my own personal history that drew me into this work. Part of it was the normal male socialization. And there are many dimensions to that, but one of the key ones was I was introduced to sexuality through pornography. In those days, it was magazines. And so when I then had my first love relationships, I had all of those images and all those Playboy advisor stories all just instilled in me. And it took me decades to begin to move all that out and replace it with a deeper, intimate reverence for the feminine and begin to heal my own sexuality. The second arena was that in the late 80s and early 90s, I was doing the holotropic breath work, and I was invited by 2 clinical psychologists who were also a lesbian couple to work with them for 6 years. I worked closely with them, and I experienced firsthand the incredible pain and violation of sexual trauma, as well as the pain that people who identify outside the gender binary suffer within the heteronormative culture. And so all of those dimensions have led to my passion for this work and my engagement. Thank you.
And Garrett.
Hello, everyone. My name's Garrett. I've been involved with Gender Equity and Reconciliation International for about 5 years now. I'm an international program officer and trainer with the organization. And today I'm on the team helping with the technology aspects. So very happy to be with you all today.
Thank you, Garrett. We're going to move into some activities in just a few moments. And so Des and Phil, you're up next.
Thank you. So in the gender equity and reconciliation work, we hold the work in the way we are together in community based on some agreements. And I want to offer and invite your honoring of the Agreement of Confidentiality. So what we will be sharing in this time that we're together and what is spoken here is to remain confidential to this particular group. With some of the activities, you may be in smaller groups, you may be in different configurations. And this agreement invites us to, whatever is spoken and shared in those particular groups, that it stay there, that we speak of our experience, that we speak not of the person with specific details of who said what, but rather our experience of hearing and receiving what they have shared. And so at the end of our experience today, and you're quite enthused about the work and what you've experienced, when you do share that, we ask you to please hold this agreement and to be mindful of what you share with others. Thank you. Phil.
Okay, the other thing that we want to cover here is that we ask that you come with a healing intention and for yourself as well as for others, and to help us to create and maintain a safe space by which we can make that happen. And if anyone knows how to create a safe space, in my judgment, it's the women of Women Within and the men of Mankind Project. So, Will, Cynthia.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you both.
So we're going to just invite you to close your eyes or have a soft gaze away from your device. And everything in this work is an invitation. So know that you can step into it as much as you want to. And so we're going to go into an activity of being in some small groups of 3 or 4. And during this time, in a moment, we're going to ask a question. And so with your eyes closed and coming into your heart center, your heart space, just some reminders, and we know you do deep work, all of you, but some reminders around deep listening, around really taking in what is being shared. And this is even more maybe important because it is cross-gender. So really coming into the place of holding that space to listen to whatever is shared. And this activity, one person at a time will be sharing in response to the question that Will's going to ask in just a minute. And so when that person's sharing, everyone's just listening. This is not a time for conversation, not a time to respond or give advice, but just to really listen. And Garrett's going to put some time markers up there. So on your computer, those will pop up periodically. Every time it's time for the next person to share. So just be mindful of that. And when it's your turn to share, just share from your heart whatever's true for you. And we encourage you to stretch yourself a little bit more than maybe you would normally. And also to watch your boundaries, so both are true. And then the people just listening are in silent witness, knowing that when it will be your turn to share, that deep respect for listening will come to you as well.
So here's the question we'd like you to reflect on, and it's in kind of 2 parts, 3 parts actually. If you are a woman, what did you learn about boys and men from your parents or parental figures, from your peers, and other key influences? And if you are a man, what did you learn about girls and women from your parents or parental figures, peers, and other influences? And if you identify outside the binary or as gender fluid, what did you learn about other gender identities and expressions from your parents or parental figures, peers, and other influences? So in short, if you're a man, what did you learn from others about girls and women? And if you're a woman, what did you learn about boys and men? And if you're gender non-binary, what did you learn about other gender identities? And this can be both from what people said to you or what they did, what the behaviors you exhibited and witnessed.
Just taking a breath in, taking those questions for reflection in. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. Be sure to say your name to each other. You may not know each other, and then just get started right away. Garrett, are you ready?
Yes, so I'll send some time reminders along the way, helping you to keep track of the time. They'll appear in a green box at the top of your screen, so just watch for those as you move along.
And if at any point you need to exit that small group, down on your right-hand side, bottom right, you can leave your room and come back to the main session here.
Okay.
See you shortly.